How are you doing, Miriam? How is Aqua? Nicholas?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you well. Yes, we can hear you well, Nicholas. How are you doing today?
Eduarda, can you hear me?
Yes, Miriam. Very well.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm having a bit of a challenge. Let me see if I can get a better connection. Can you confirm if you can hear me? Because I can't hear anyone.
Nicholas, we can hear you well.
I'm not able to hear anyone.
Okay. So,
Good morning.
good morning. How are you doing?
Fine. And you?
Also fine. Hello. How are you doing? Good morning. Nicholas, Nicholas, can you hear now or not yet? No.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Eduarda, good, all good on your side?
Thank you, Kailash. Very good. And you?
All good,
Mauritius, all fine?
all good, all fine. So I hope we'll see you shortly.
Yes, we will start soon. Another minute or two. Bom dia. Bom dia a todos e todas, os colegas participantes dos diferentes países. Angola já está aqui conosco.
Bom dia, Moçambique já está. Bom dia.
Bom dia, Maria Luísa. Tudo bem? Muito prazer.
Bom dia, Pepe. Tudo bem, tudo bem, tudo bem. Estou em Nampula.
Está em Nampula? Sim.
Estou. Daqui a umas 2 horas tenho o meu voo, mas vou participar até.
Então, ok. Obrigada.
De nada, imagina.
Good morning, IGAD. Good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Dr. Kebede. Always a pleasure.
Did you make the trip to Addis?
No, it was postponed to next year, so it will be
Okay,
in
I
the
was
week
wondering
of the
because I was
23rd of
busy.
January.
I thought I missed you, but it's fine if it is postponed.
Okay, yes.
Excellent, excellent.
Yes, on the week of the 23rd of January.
January, okay, that's fine. I
Yes.
think it should be okay.
Yes,
Everything
I hope
okay?
to see you then.
Good.
Let us wait for our colleague from the African Union Commission, Mr. Nicolas Oma.
Okay.
He was having some difficulties with the audio. I'm not so sure if he joined already.
No, Eduardo, he hasn't rejoined yet, but I guess he will join soon.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So let us continue. But our colleague Emmanuel, Chigozie Emmanuel Okonkwo, also from the African Union Commission, he is the main focal expert working with ACQF. He has joined. He is traveling, but he managed to find an appropriate connection. Welcome, Emmanuel. Very good to see you. E caro.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. I just came in. Yeah, thank you. Glad I could meet up the time.
Yes, just to say, Emmanuel, so first of all, many thanks for managing this very difficult situation. So arriving in Frankfurt and managing nonetheless to connect to this webinar. I wanted just to inform that our colleague, Mr. Nicolas Oma, is having some difficulties with the audio, but we hope that you will soon join back.
Okay, let me try to reach him.
Okay.
In any case, should we need to start, I would just give his remarks on his behalf and we can get going.
Okay, you decide, let us know.
Okay.
Please, Emmanuel, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Welcome all participants, representatives, delegates, friends of the ACQF to this last webinar in 2022. Thank you so much. Bonjour et soyez tous les bienvenus, tous et toutes les bienvenus à ce webinaire qui sera le dernier du projet de développement de l'ACQF en 2022. Nous sommes ravis de vous voir tous, tant de collègues des pays francophones. Merci beaucoup. Le Maroc, le Cameroun, le Togo, la Tunisie. Merci à tous. And let me say a word of welcome also to our colleagues from different international organizations who are part of the ACQF development process. And here I'd like to mention, of course, the ILO. Christine Hoffman is here with us. We have certainly also UNESCO joining or coming soon. We have, of course, the representatives of the European Union delegation to African Union. The head of cooperation is going to be part of the opening session. We also have from European Training Foundation, one of the partners of the project developing the ACQF. We have the director, Mr. Xavier Mateu, is also going to greet all of you in his opening remarks. And of course, we will always have additional participants joining. In the meantime, we have already 48 participants. We are here with you, with us all, for this final looking back in order to prepare to leap forward. Thank you. Many new organizations, many new developments with national qualifications frameworks on the African continent.
Yes, Edward, I think we now have Mr. Nicolas. In order not to lose him, perhaps we can get started and
yes.
Have Mr. Nicolas speak to us.
Okay.
Once again, confirm if you can hear me. I'm having a bit of challenges.
We can hear you well, Mr. Nicholas. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also want to join you and Emmanuel in welcoming all of us to this important engagement. It is truly an honor for us at the African Union Commission to welcome you this morning to this final ACQF webinar under the auspices of the African Continental Qualification Framework Project, which, as we all know, is an initiative of the African Union Commission in partnership with the European Union, GIZ, and the European Training Foundation. After a series of engagements that started with the very, very first meeting in Addis, I think it is good to say that today is just about to say thank you and to appreciate the tremendous efforts by the entire ACQF family for the work and the distance we have come in the past 2.5 years. You will all agree with me that the various webinars, the trainings that we have undertaken have all in a way been beneficial and moved the needle in the qualifications framework in a positive way. In that regard, also from the onset, let me appreciate the distinguished array of trainers that we have had in the various engagements, those who have shared country experiences, and the ACQF team for their commitment to making this activity a reality. Indeed, our commissioner, Professor Mohamed Belfossing, has been among those who have appreciated the fact that we have come this far, and he is indeed proud of the way the ACQF team has engaged and produced the documents we already have, including the experiences that we have shared with countries. And I want to also, in a special
I think we have again a bit of problems with the audio on the side of Mr. Nicholas.
confirm if you can still hear me.
We
Yes, we
cannot
can
hear
hear you.
you well.
Can somebody confirm if you can still hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
I think I disconnected.
Yes,
a
now
bit.
it's good, Nicholas, again.
Yes, I was saying we also want to thank you, Eduarda, for the fact that you have assisted us in this. The first 10-year implementation plan of Agenda 2063 foresees the development of ACQF and that a common education qualification system is put in place by 2023. We are convinced that the development of ACQF is an important milestone in reorienting Africa's education and training systems to meet the human resource needs of Agenda 2063. The process has seen the engagement of different stakeholders and experts, as I've said, which is the backbone of the ACQF. We have the website on and running, which is also furthering our communication. We have the policy document with guideline, and more importantly, we co-created a capacity development program composed of a combination of modalities of learning, peer learning webinars, support to countries and regions, and training programs and conferences. So you will all agree with me that we have come a long way. We are in the right train and in the right direction, and I believe we will get to a destination as per the objectives of the ACQF development. And with that, I want also to finally conclude by sincerely thanking you for joining us this, and also wish those who will be going for their vacations and leave. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you. Back to you, Emmanuel. I don't know if I was heard or I was on and off, but I think I tried.
Yes, we could hear you. Thank you so much, Nicholas. Asante sana.
Karibu.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Emmanuel, we have now still our colleagues from the European Union delegation to African Union and also director of ETF. They have very short opening remarks also.
Thank you, Eduarda. I think we can, of course, invite the EU delegation to the African Union to please make their opening words, give their opening words.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. This is Thomas Hergepaard, the head of policy and cooperation at the EU delegation to the African Union. I'm really sorry, I seem to have a problem with the camera, so this is not working, but I hope you hear me well. But yeah, dear colleagues from the African Union Commission, from the ETF, I'm very happy to see big teams around here with a large participation. I think all this is an illustration of the very solid path that we have gone together on the ACQF project. And I think it's also an illustration of good partnership between the African Union Commission, the multiple stakeholders around the African continent, the GIZ, the ETF, and so on. I think, first of all, let me congratulate everyone from the AUC, the GIZ, ETF, and the advisory group on the achievements of this project. I think Nicola has already mentioned some of that. I mean, we have a policy document that has been validated at technical level. And we've made different kinds of innovations. We have technical manuals, research, extensive research has been done. And of course, we have also an innovative website and capacity development has been taking place. I think bringing together the wide range of experts across the African continent was the most important part. And I think the illustration of having so many around the table today is a very good step also for the next ones. So let me congratulate you again on this success. Now, of course, this is not the end. We have done a big, important initial step, but we have to look at the future. And I think the ACQF policy document provides the solid basis to build upon. And we need to continue on this momentum. What I said, I'm delighted that we are continuing the partnership together on this important topic. And at present, we have started consultations with the AUC and the European Training Foundation on the next phase. And I think I'm happy to say that we have a decision now with a new budget of 5 million euros. And that provides us with the means to work now together with this group on the details of what should be our priorities for the next stage. I'm pleased to see that there will be a strong emphasis on the implementation of activities at national and regional level, because of course, the continental level is a very important one, but what we need is the implementation, is the concrete work on the ground where the qualifications come closer together. It should be said that the ACQF is also a cross-continental initiative. The cooperation and partnership between Africa and Europe will benefit much from the implementation of this ACQF in the near future. The European Qualifications Framework and the ACQF will cooperate and contribute to the global transparency of qualifications, which is particularly needed in a digital and green economies and integrated economies of the 21st century. In the coming months, we look forward to continue working together on sharing best practices, addressing challenges, and working together. As the European Union, I would like to stress also that the ACQF is, of course, not our only project working on education. It is part of a broad portfolio that is focused on education system strengthening across Africa. As you are aware, this includes the harmonization of African higher education quality assurance and accreditation initiative, which we work also closely with the AUC on. Of course, you have Erasmus Plus, and I mean, I think all the different mobilities that are continue to be increased and enlarged to new areas, and the Inter-Africa Mobility Scheme. It's also EU's contribution to strengthening mobility within the African continent. In addition, in early 2023, we will launch, as some of you have heard, the Regional Teacher Program, which is of course also relevant to the recognition of teachers' qualifications. And I think we need also to build those bridges. So I want to emphasize that between these current and future initiatives, I encourage you all to continue the strong coordination and the good teamwork across these different interventions. The nature of our work means that there are inevitable crossovers, and we should seize opportunities to maximize synergies and avoid overlaps. This will also increase the sustainability of our efforts. And ultimately, we are all on the same team. ACQF will increase mobility of workers, deepen regional integration, and ultimately improve the lives of African citizens by enhancing their access to decent work. Let me conclude. Today's meeting provides another valuable opportunity to discuss the challenges and ideas for the next phase of the implementation of the ACQF, but also to celebrate already the good work that has been done. Your views and opinions and areas are crucial, so please share freely here today. Please be proactive in the discussions today. Be ready to share your experience and to suggest areas for improvement. Sorry, I had another call. I'm confident that this gathering of expertise and the cooperation between you will bring many positive results. Let me conclude my intervention by expressing again my appreciation for your presence here today. Et encore un grand merci à tout le monde, à les amis de la Commission de l'Union africaine, le groupe d'experts et bien sûr l'ETF que je salue à l'occasion. Je vous souhaite tous une très bonne réunion et merci encore. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Thomas. We take note of your very encouraging remarks. We also note that the call for continuous collaboration among stakeholders going forward, and the emphasis you've placed on complementarity of work. We appreciate you, Mr. Thomas. It is now time for us to welcome the director of the European Training Foundation, Mr. Xavier, for his remarks. Over to you, Mr. Xavier.
Thank you very much. Good morning, bonjour, bon dia. Welcome to on behalf of the ETF, to this final stakeholders webinar of the African Continental Qualification Framework Project. I am the director of the European Training Foundation, and I want to join today this webinar to celebrate this first phase of the ACQF project and wish you all the best success for the next phase. The ACQF development process started 3 years ago with the stakeholders workshop at the headquarters of the African Union in Addis. 3 years of intensive work and of adaptation to the changing and challenging context marked by the restrictions of the COVID-19 pandemic. The ACQF project could swiftly shift activities to digital and online modalities. And here is the paradox. This move allowed the project to expand the scope of the work, increase networking and peer learning, and explore interactions and collaborations with many more countries than originally planned under the pre-COVID scenario. So this is the first lesson of this process, this openness and to adaptation and change to better engage with stakeholders and respond to new demands and opportunities of a world in constant transformation. The qualification frameworks are a global phenomenon. Over 150 countries are developing and implementing NQFs, and in most cases, they are comprehensive and inclusive of all levels of and types of qualifications. But qualifications frameworks only work if they are open to innovation and supported by stakeholders, institutional capacities, relevant instruments, and knowledge and concrete actions. In other words, when they do need a systematic approach to deliver their benefits. National qualification frameworks speak with each other with the help of regional qualification frameworks, which act as catalysts for strengthening NQF in the region, and most importantly, they contribute to transparency and mutual trust between countries. The number of NQFs is increasing on the continent, and so is the relevance and importance of a framework with the continental scales of the ACQF. So this is the second lesson I find that we can mention today. National, regional, and continental layers of qualification frameworks shall be interconnected, and the diversity of national systems can be an opportunity when instruments for transparency and comparisons are functional and accessible to all countries and users. People are at the heart of the new experiences, new knowledge and sharing of good practice. The ACQF project implemented in these 3 years from 2020 till now, a program of 20 peer learning webinars in which over 30 national and regional organizations of the African continent share their experiences in developing NQF, quality assurance, recognition of prior learning, and diplomas, digital registers of qualifications. Experiences from Europe, from Asia, from Middle East were also shared by 15 national and regional organizations. This created a dynamic atmosphere of shared and active learning that has immense potential for mutual help between African countries and regions, and consequently for sustainability. This collective knowledge is available and is open and accessible in the form of large set of learning materials and pedagogical videos on ACQF website. And this is the third lesson we can highlight today. ACQF connects, contributes to mutual trust, and creates knowledge based on African experiences. And by contributing to developing national and regional qualification frameworks, ACQF meets the strategic objective of the Continental Education Strategy for Africa. The involvement and contribution of all participants, countries, institutions, social partners, stakeholders, and experts is the backbone of the ACQF process. I want to thank everybody that is today here in this webinar, but also all the people who have been participating in the different webinars. And particularly, I want to help also Erika and Eduarda, who has been inspiring and very efficient in conducting all this process. We wish you all and the continent much success in the next phase, implementing the functions and realizing the benefits of the ACQF for the better skills, mutual trust, fair mobility, lifelong learning, and employability of the African people. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Director Xavier. Thank you for those inspiring remarks. We have now come to the end of the opening session, but by way of appreciation, would like to appreciate the responsible organizations, the African Union Commission represented by Mr. Nicholas, the EU delegation to the African Union represented by Mr. Thomas, and of course, the director of ETF, for really their commitment to this process, we wouldn't have achieved all that we have achieved so far on the ACQF project without the commitment and the support from these organizations. We also have the GIZ with us here, who I think have been very instrumental in every step that we have taken throughout the actualization of the phase 1 of the ACQF project. Without further ado, I think it is best we move to the next session. Then I would pass the floor to Eduarda to take us through the ACQF, the journey of 3 years of serious learning, co-construction, really out the main milestones and achievements so far. Eduarda, over to you.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Thank you very much for the opening remarks to Thomas and Xavier, as well as naturally to Nicholas. And now we start the session, the first session, with a video. Please. Thank you very much for this video that very briefly and just using pictures from activities of the ACQF development process shows in a very rapid manner the milestones and the involvement of many of those who are actually today sitting in this webinar. So thank you very much. We are a little bit running late, so let me immediately share the presentation we have prepared jointly with Emmanuel for this meeting, and we are going to do it in a very rapid, succinct manner. And so the topic is, as of course you know, to give a sum up of the main activities and milestones of the project. Let me also, to start, remind the agenda for today. So after this presentation, we will have the highlight actually of the meeting, which is a panel discussion. And the panel discussion will gather today 5 representatives from countries and from one of the regional economic communities, IGAD. Thank you very much for your participation. So this will be certainly a very interesting moment of our webinar today. Then we dedicate just 15 minutes to each of the last final outputs of the ACQF development project. and your final views and sharing through a poll. So trying to really be very efficient in the process of this webinar today, and then acknowledgements and celebration closure. Yes, we all know that Africa needs skills and qualifications, and this is a call for ACQF. So the African Continental Free Trade Area, now with 43 countries that have ratified, the youngest continent, 65% of the population is younger than 25 years. It's 55 countries, therefore a very big diversity, almost 1.5 billion population. So, so many different calls and drivers for skills and qualifications, and a framework, continental, that can link and can support all these integration, important integration policies, such as, for example, the AFCFTA. So looking at the total number of countries, this will be the largest regional qualifications framework on the planet, with 55 countries. We all know that ACQF is underpinned and is supporting by the AU policies and strategies. And Mr. Nicholas already mentioned this morning the first 10-year implementation plan supporting Agenda 2063. But let me also remind, of course, CESA 2016-25, so the Continental Education Strategy for Africa. Two of the strategic objectives of CESA concretely, explicitly mention and call for setting up national qualifications frameworks, regional qualifications frameworks, and also the continental qualifications framework for Africa. So in this process, let us start by thanking, for acknowledging all the countries that have, in a way or the other, contributed, participated in the activities, and they are all listed here. It is 44 countries, and I'd like to read all the names. So Angola, Botswana, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cameroon, Cape Verde, Chad, Côte d'Ivoire, Union of Comoros, République démocratique du Congo, République du Congo, Djibouti, Egypt, Eswatini, Ethiopia, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Kenya, Lesotho, Madagascar, Mali, Malawi, Mauritius, Morocco, Mozambique, Namibia, Nigeria, Rwanda, São Tomé e Príncipe, Senegal, Seychelles, Sierra Leone, Somalia, South Africa, South Sudan, Sudan, Togo, Tanzania, Tunisia, Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe. And we also have these four economic communities, and I should actually have added ECOWAS, naturally. SADC, the East Africa Community, and we did also the Inter-University Council for Higher Education for East Africa, IGAD, and ECOWAS. From African regional thematic organizations, we have AQVN, African Curriculum Association, CAMES, AFCECN, and of course also the Union of the Students' Union, All Africa Students' Union. From other regions and continents, Bahrain, France, Ireland, Portugal, Slovenia, Sweden, they have also contributed to the peer learning webinars, sharing their experiences and knowledge. Other important organizations, relevant organizations participating throughout the process have been, of course, the European Qualifications Framework, as the ASEAN QRF, Qualifications Reference Framework, the Arab Qualifications Framework, Credential Engine from United States. And naturally also important to mention the specialized organizations and networks that have provided contribution and also in different manners, such as CEDEFOP, the ENIC-NARIC Network, ESCO of the European Commission, and UNESCO. ILO is also part of this group as one of the members of the advisory group of ACQF. I also need to thank, and I hope I will not cry, all the ACQF experts. And I want to start with Colleen Jafta. She is author of 4 of the training modules and guidelines of the ACQF. And then we have Miriam Chiaba, James Mwewa, Fidelis Chelo, Modest Amalabi, they are from Zambia, from ZACWA. This team has also done excellent work on 2 of the training modules and guidelines. Then we have the team of JET Education Services that also has done excellent work, notably in a part of the mapping study and then guidelines and training modules. Let me also list their names: James Kiwi, Eleanor Hazel, Kelly Shiohira, Zahida Valley, and other experts of this team, not mentioned here explicitly. Then we have from Australia, Andrea Bateman. She has also contributed through various important publications. The other team, ACQF team, with which we have been working from end of 2020, is composed of the following experts from different countries. So Deodon Kungufine from Cameroon, Eusebius Juma Mukwana from Kenya, Jeffy Mukora from Mozambique, Kailash Algu from Mauritius, and Jean Adotevi from Togo. Besides, and let me finish the list very quickly by, of course, thanking also the experts working on the ACQF website, Karel Kalitz and Mike Metcalf, and of course, very, very important, our colleagues Erika Davolio and Julia Rulo, who have been very, very efficient and effective, providing high quality support to all the meetings, hybrid and online. I'll be very quick now with the rest of the presentation. So we all know that let's say the success of this process of building the ACQF has been this combination. From one side, the technical analytical work, from the other side, people and networking. And these 2 things have been going together, not separated, but together. So, of course, the AUC support and political leadership, the ACQF advisory group that was created from the very first launch workshop and involved throughout the process. This process of combined technical analytical component with networking with people. The ACQF team with practical NQF expertise, many years of expertise, multilingual, covering all regions. The learning and capacity development, the support to countries and cooperation with regional economic communities, something that came a bit later in the process as countries started to realize that they can benefit from the ACQF process immediately in a manner that we have called quick wins. And of course, also international and EU linkages and networking. So the ACQF achievements, let's say the outputs have already been mentioned, but once again, in a systematic manner. The ACQF policy document, and Emmanuel will tell us later that this document is going to go through a process of validation driven by the AUC, the ACQF level descriptors, the 10 technical and synthesis guidelines, the 10 training modules accompanied by over 50 presentations, technical presentations, all available, accessible online for you to use in your meetings, in your training activities, in your conversations about your own 10QF development processes. The ACQF website that we are constantly updating and enriching, the mapping study collection that is always constantly growing, the feasibility study that provides the underpinnings and the analytical framework for the development of the ACQF as a policy instrument. Then also important to mention one example of concrete cooperation with very tangible results with one of the important regional economic communities and regional qualifications framework. It is the review of the SADC qualifications framework report and an updated and complete inventory. We already mentioned, but let me just emphasize that besides the 15 peer learning webinars, and you find all the presentations, all the materials, all the videos, pedagogic videos on the ACQF website, there were also 5 experience sharing webinars at initiative of the African Qualifications Verification Network, AQVN, and jointly organized with ACQF. And this is something that I can also mention here, is this work in cooperation with other organizations that have a joint interface or area of interest with ACQF. For another example is, for example, the study on curriculum, school curriculum, so the school curriculum mapping study, an initiative of the African Curriculum Association under also the umbrella of the CISA curriculum cluster. And this study was carried out jointly with ACQF, jointly conceived and organized. Maybe an important point that I'd like to mention is the, let's say, the richness, the wealth of this ACQF mapping study collection. It's a continuing effort. It did not stop in 2020. No, we continued adding new mapping reports, and currently we have 14 country and 3 regional reports. In the beginning, originally, we had planned 6 country reports, but we reached this number 14. What was also very important is that for the first time through this mapping study, ACQF mapping study, were published analytical reports of NQF developments of 9 countries that had never been included in the global inventory of national qualifications frameworks, regional qualifications frameworks. So this was really an added value. And so these 9 countries now have these reports accessible, and they can and should be updated because things are changing. And the countries I mentioned here are indicated: Angola, Cameroon, Cape Verde, Togo, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea-Bissau, Mozambique, Nigeria. These are 9 countries, and also a region, EAC, East Africa Community, that had not been so far included in this global inventory of NQFs and RQFs. There is a very concrete, tangible, visible dynamics of NQF development in Africa. And so this is just a summary of how the different stages of NQF and implementation look like currently, as we know today. So from taking a total of 44 countries, what we see is that 41% of this total number have NQFs approved and implementation started. And this is really a very changed picture compared with what we could take stock of 3 years ago when we started with the mapping study. So this the share of countries with NQFs in development and consultation and NQFs approved and implementation started has really significantly increased. ACQF guidelines and training modules, of course, you have the opportunity to see them all in the ACQF website. We are doing more work now to publish all of them in French and Portuguese. As you know, translations sometimes take a lot of time to proofread and verify. And so, you know, in a nutshell, what we want to say is that these 10 topics of the guidelines and the training modules are those topics that are part of the ACQF model that has been disseminated, that we have been working on with different experts, with the stakeholders, and that is also here represented. So ACQF policy, the NQF policy, conceptual technical design, must be related, must work together with all the other elements. So the learning outcomes, level descriptors, referencing, validation and recognition of learning, quality assurance, very, very important element. Registration and databases of qualifications, another very important element. Monitoring and evaluation in the context of NQFs and ACQF, that's the topic 7, guideline 7, communication and outreach. Guideline 9, innovation and technology in the context of qualifications frameworks. And finally, the guideline 10, that is the systemic view, provides then a systemic view of qualifications and qualifications frameworks. So with this set, with this package of topics all articulated and linked together, ACQF project tried to provide to all interested parties, countries, institutions, a very good reference point for their very efforts in developing their national and regional qualifications frameworks. Guinea-Bissau is one of the interesting cases, and we always like to acknowledge and recognize the work done with Guinea-Bissau jointly with the Ministry of Education, with INAFOR, and also with the EU project working on revitalization of the VET system. And so this all started in the context of the ACQF peer learning webinars. This is how they linked countries with the ACQF. And so at this moment where we speak, we have done together with the stakeholders and experts of Guinea-Bissau the mapping study. The NQF working group has been put in place, a workshop in Bissau, 2 days workshop in Bissau. The ACQF training has been provided. The brief handbook on development of professional qualifications, all published on ACQF website. And now also we are also working on the concept paper of the NQF for Guinea-Bissau, jointly with the working group. And a web page is available on ACQF website. And of course, one of the very active participants of ACQF training weeks and peer learning webinars is here showing her digital certificate that she could issue by herself at the end of the hybrid, the second training week. So we have then carried out this year 2 training weeks, one fully online and one hybrid. Besides everything that you can say about the content, about the interactions, the number of countries involved, these were very important learning activities on how to organize such important training events, either fully online or in the hybrid format. So this is just a very brief overview of main, let's say, figures, participants, countries online, and countries that issued certificates. So online and on site. So we had, as you can see, in the first training week, approximately a bit more than 130 participants online. In the second one, 212 online. But we had online and on-site. Then participants on-site were 57 from 28 countries in the second training week, hybrid that took place in Johannesburg, and the total number of countries online, so that accessed that could access the Zoom platform and participate actively are 36 in each of the training weeks. And 52 participants in each of the training weeks have issued their digital certificates, and they can then in the future continue their cooperation, becoming trainers or focal points in their countries with the future ACQF project. So in a nutshell, also the feedback from participants on the first training week. So you can see different questions of evaluation, such as organization of training materials, the trainers. We have then a total out of 4 maximum possible, the scale 3.65, the total evaluation of all participants, a very high score given. In the second training week here, we present only 2 separate questions of evaluation, training materials presentations from one side and relevance and interest of content, and a total of 3.55, also out of 4. This is just to remind, and here I will be really very quick in reminding what the ACQF as a policy document is proposed to be. So according to the ACQF policy document that has been validated technically by the ACQF advisory group through the various consultation rounds, and also technically validated at level of the African Union Commissioner for Education, Science, Technology and Innovation. Before now, the process of technical validation, of political and technical validation driven by the AUC with the member states. So the purposes of ACQF, so we have here 4 main purposes: enhancing comparability, quality, transparency of qualifications of all types and levels, supporting people's lifelong learning outcomes. So this is really an inclusive framework, facilitate validation of learning or recognition of skills, diplomas, so all learning acquired in different modalities, cooperate and work in complementarity with national regional qualifications frameworks, supporting development, consolidation, implementation, and finally promote cooperation referencing between qualifications frameworks, national, regional, in Africa and with worldwide. And three most important principles, one of them already mentioned, inclusiveness, the principle of innovation, so future proof, open to new demands, emerging skills, green, transversal digital skills, and openness to good practice lessons from worldwide and the globe. Also, in a nutshell, the ACQF is, of course, underpinned by quality assurance, and quality assurance appears in different, let's say, places of the policy documents. It's a meta framework with a comprehensive scope, as said, 10 levels, so covering the whole continuum of education and training. Level descriptors expressed as learning outcomes in three domains: knowledge, skills, autonomy, responsibility. So a very strong, let's say, orientation to the learning outcomes that is useful for a number of purposes. Referencing is, of course, a core function of the ACQF as an overarching qualifications framework. And referencing is a process aimed at comparing national qualifications framework or systems or regional qualifications frameworks as well to the ACQF following criteria and procedures. So at national level, referencing contributes also to self-assessment, to improvement, to identify areas for reform and further visibility and strengthening. At a continental level and between countries, so referencing of the ACQF to the ACQF of a significant and increasing number of national qualifications frameworks or systems leads to the creation of a common area of trusted qualifications and enables the transformative potential of the ACQF for the continent. The 7 main areas of activity as indicated in the policy document, and here it's looking at ACQF under the scenario called ACQF creates mutual trust. So these are the 7 main areas. Referencing, area number 1, support recognition of prior learning. Number 3, ACQF qualifications platform and a management information system for transparency of information sharing. Qualifications development, so common profiles for priority sectors, for example, for continental integration or for AFCFTA, capacity development through different modalities, networking and cooperation, and also very important analysis, research, monitoring, and evaluation. ACQF has many infographics, has many different publications, easy to read. This is just a sum up of guidelines and training modules. And of course, please use the ACQF website, where you can find all this information. Going forward, and in the next period, as already indicated briefly in the opening session, so Emmanuel could tell us more about the validation of the ACQF policy document. It's a process in advanced preparation. You see, is going to contact the member states. This is all a process driven by the AUC. Then building on the outputs and outcomes of the current ACQF project to follow up through a new project supporting implementation or transition to implementation of the ACQF, and always promoting and supporting diverse levels of cooperation, all levels of governance, national, regional, and continental. They all are connected. In development and preparation on the ACQF, and this is the last slide, the newsletter, a new tool, ACQF inventory, uploading 3 new thematic briefs, ACQF publications in French and Portuguese. And thank you also on behalf of my colleague, Chigozie Emmanuel Okonkwo, who has been a very important support and driver of this process. Thank you very much. So Emmanuel, we can now move to the next session we are, of course, a bit late with our schedule. It is the panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Eduarda. Thank you for really taking us through the journey so far. You would agree with me that we've really come a long way, and we've achieved quite a lot. We've achieved quite a lot. We've gone beyond what we have set for ourselves. And I think we all deserve a round of applause for ourselves, really. Moving into the next session, which really seeks to engage further the ACQF stakeholders on their views on the processes of the ACQF and their proposed suggestion going forward. But before then, distinguished participants, you will all agree with me that the ecosystem in which the ACQF will be operating in is quite complex and diverse. Unlike other transnational frameworks in the world, the ACQF will interact with two different levels of qualifications framework: the national qualifications framework and the regional qualifications frameworks. This is especially because half of the African Union member states do not yet have their national qualifications framework, while others are still more or less reflecting on how to advance such frameworks. The ACQF hopes to interact with a great array of education and training systems with a call to contribute to the wider objectives of African integration in both economy and trade, as well as through employability underpinned by transparent and comparable qualifications across board. The ACQF, you would agree, also will require a synergistic approach with all players in this sector coming together to really chart the way forward. This is to prepare, in essence, the ground for this panel discussion. In that regards, I'm being joined here today by 5 notable institutions, starting with SINAC. We also have Zambia Qualifications Authority. We have IGAD. We also have Cameroon and Cape Verde to share their views on what the suggestions, or to share their suggestions on what they think should be the next, the way forward for the ACQF, and how the ACQF would interact with the national qualifications framework and the regional qualifications framework. To guide this conversation, we have 2 questions. Panelists, the question is, what are, in your view, the main benefits and achievements of the ACQF development project? What are the key lessons for the future? The second question is, what are your main expectations and recommendations for the next phase of the ACQF? And how can you, your organization, contribute to make the ACQF a reality for the continent? To kick off this conversation, permit me to invite Professor Maria Luisa Chicote, the co-chair of the ACQF Advisory Group and the president of SINAC. Professor Maria, you have the floor. You have 6 minutes. Thank you.
Muito bom dia. Moçambique, bom dia.
Very good morning. It's
São agora
morning here
11
in
horas.
Mozambique. It's 11 o'clock now.
Meu nome é Maria Luisa Chicote.
My name is Maria
Acho que
Luisa
o processo de
Chicote.
integração linguística
We are under the
necessário.
process of
Chicote.
linguistic integration. My
Eu
name
sou
is
presidente do
Chicote.
Conselho Nacional de
I am
Avaliação de
the
Qualidade do
chairperson
Ensino
of
Superior
the
em
National
Moçambique,
Board
KINAC.
for the Assessment of
E também faço
Higher
parte
Education in
do grupo
Mozambique.
técnico de
I'm also
consulta
part of
da
the
SADC.
technical
E neste momento
expert from the
acho que
SADC.
estou a terminar a vice-presidência por causa da presidência da SADC.
Ending
Eu queria gastar
chairmanship.
minuto
Like
da minha intervenção para reconhecer o grande contributo que o projeto ACQF trouxe.
For this,
E o reconhecer significa
trazer à
ACQF
memória
and
todos os
acknowledging means to
participantes,
bring on
todos
board, to
os
remind all the
consultores, todos
participants
os
and
experts,
consultants and all
e esse
different
grupo todo
experts.
foi,
And
como
all
nós
this
sabemos, foi
group
mobilizado pela
was
ETF e que no
mobilized
dia a
by
dia da
ACQF,
gestão nós
and on a
tivemos
daily basis
a
in terms of
grande
management,
animação, eu
we
chamo
have
de
had
animação
this
da
animation. I
Maria
call this
Eduarda Castelo.
animation,
Então eu
which is
queria
done by
que
Maria
cada
Eduarda
do
Castelo.
fundo
So
do
I
seu
would like
coração
to
pudesse expressar
say that
aquele que é o
each
nosso
one of us
agradecimento
would
como,
like to
como
express our
Moçambique, como
gratitude
África,
as
como SADC,
Mozambique, as
em relação,
Africa has SADC
peço desculpas, em
regarding
relação a esta proposta.
this proposal.
O que dizer sobre
So what
o
to say
projeto
about
ACQF? Para mim, pessoalmente, acho que os colegas
for me,
puderam
personally,
perceber que eu
I
me
think
integrei no
you
grupo em
have understood
2021,
that I became
perto
part
do
of the
mês
group
de
in
abril,
2021
e
in
para mim se
April, and
constituiu
for
a
me,
primeira como uma plataforma de
this
aprendizagem.
was a
Uma
learning
plataforma de
platform.
aprendizagem, e de outro lado, quando
And
eu fui
this on one
aprofundando
hand,
o que
and on other
significava o
hand,
projeto
when
ACQF,
deeply understanding the
percebi
project, I
que
could
era uma das
understand that
bandeiras da
this was
cooperação
one of the
concreta
flag
entre a
for
União
a
Africana
concrete
e a
cooperation
União
between the
Europeia.
African Union
É uma
as
das
well as with
bandeiras que busca, digamos
European
assim, na sua essência, comparticipar de uma forma direta
Commission.
no
So this allows
desenvolvimento daqueles que no desenvolvimento e
participate
na implementação,
directly in
sobretudo,
the
tanto dos
development and
objetivos de
implementation,
desenvolvimento
either for
sustentável, em
the
particular da
the
estratégia continental para a
ODS,
África,
as
da
well as
Convenção de
goals
Addis
of
Abeba.
the
Foi
African
dito aqui que a
continent.
primeira reunião foi em Addis Abeba, e o nosso foco, quando nós falamos do quadros ou dos quadros nacionais de qualificações, a nossa preocupação é essa, em relação àquilo que nós queremos para a África em termos de mobilidade profissional, em termos de mobilidade estudantil, em termos de mobilidade e mais comunicação entre o nosso mercado de trabalho. Em termos de avaliação do projeto ACQF, eu penso que já foi esgotado, mas eu sinto que tenho a obrigação de mais uma vez reiterar aqueles que são os resultados tangíveis do projeto ACQF. Primeiro, é o documento político que todos nós tivemos a possibilidade de participar nesse processo e também a partir do ponto de vista de intervenção de cada de poder ser consultado e contribuir. E subsidiando o documento político do ACQF, também tivemos como resultado tangível as 10 diretrizes que de uma forma muito explícita para nós como Moçambique se constituíram como, digamos assim, uma ferramenta principal para, concreta, para que nós pudéssemos dar seguimento, pudéssemos saber o que é que nós temos que fazer, o que é que nos espera, quais são os passos concretos que nós deveríamos seguir em torno daqueles que eram as nossas propostas, os nossos objetivos, no que se refere ao projeto nacional de desenho de qualificações. Em relação, e sobre esse aspecto, quando falamos das ferramentas, das informações ricas que estão como recurso na página, no website do projeto ACQF, a minha pergunta seria possível pensarmos na implementação, no desenho dos quadros de qualificações, nas propostas políticas em relação à criação dos quadros nacionais de qualificações, sem, digamos assim, o contributo dessas estratégias, a dinâmica dessas estratégias e as ferramentas. E falando das ferramentas aqui também, gostaria de recordar os módulos bem estruturados, sistematizados, que que favorece para quem entra no grupo, para quem se integra no grupo, ele encontra, digamos assim, uma ferramenta muito explícita, muito sistematizada e concreta para poder se integrar no grupo e participar deste processo. E sobre este aspecto eu queria exaltar aqui a abordagem e o processo utilizado no contexto do ACQF, a característica específica que eu encontro é a sistematicidade nos processos de formação, sistematicidade, a retomada que nós fazíamos nesses processos de consulta, de validação, em todos os níveis. Eu penso que essas são grandes aprendizagens que nós precisamos focar nelas, que precisamos potenciar, porque sem uma contínua sistematização e reflexão contínua em relação aos processos que iam acontecendo, não seria muito possível. E sobre este aspecto, penso que seríamos de aproveitar nos próximos passos. No que se refere ao contexto moçambicano, que benefícios, que contributos, eu entro no grupo do desenho de qualificações de Moçambique, faço parte e sou desafiada a coordenar este processo. Eu não sei o que eu teria feito se eu não tivesse integrada no projeto do ACQF. De onde que eu teria partido? Para dizer que para Moçambique foi um ganho concreto, foi um ganho tangível, tanto que em menos de um ano que nós nos aderimos ou participamos, digamos assim, eu só como coordenadora no projeto do ACQF, nós conseguimos ter o nosso quadro nacional aprovado pelo nosso Conselho de Ministros por um decreto, conseguimos ter o grupo que trabalhava de uma forma, digamos assim, com paixão, conseguimos tornar esse grupo oficial, tornar esse grupo, digamos assim, formalizado também no contexto desse decreto, para que realmente ele possa assumir neste processo de desenho e implementação do quadro nacional. Igualmente, por termos participado nesse processo, de um lado, nos instigava a dizer qual será o próximo passo. O que temos que fazer? Que resultado que nós temos que trazer como contributo de evolução no projeto do ACQF? E isso também nos possibilitou a podermos exercer a influência política dentro do nosso país. Tanto é que há sensivelmente uma semana foi aprovada a revisão da Lei da Educação Profissional. A lei prevê de uma forma legal o contributo do setor privado, o foco nas qualificações. Do outro lado também, nós percebemos e aprendemos que a implementação do desenho do QN, que é do quadro nacional, é um momento de inovação, é um momento de reflexão. E no contexto do ensino superior, do qual estamos diretamente ligados, foi possível também introduzir essas inovações relacionadas com aquilo que é plasmado no quadro nacional de qualificações, e assim foi também aprovada a revisão da nossa lei do ensino superior, que tem como foco as qualificações do ensino superior, a garantia de qualidade e todos esses elementos importantes. Não sei se ainda estou em tempo, mas eu queria já entrar na segunda questão. Que recomendações para o projeto ACQF? Veja, Emanuela aí está preocupado, já vou para a última questão. É que tenho muito para dizer em relação ao ACQF. Que recomendações? Para mim, as capacitações são críticas, tanto no processo do desenho, no processo da implementação, no processo, porque cada fase da implementação do desenho tem os seus desafios, e não é possível nós dizemos que, ok, o projeto já acabou, e qual é o próximo passo? Os próximos passos eles sempre devem ser, na minha ótica, decididos por um processo sistemático de capacitação. E o outro aspecto, a necessidade da capacitação, do treinamento, vem também do fato da nossa diversidade em contextos políticos. Todos os stakeholders desses processos,
all the stakeholders of
são
this
suscetíveis
process
a mudanças contínuas. E é
susceptible to
preciso
continuous
uma atualização
changes. So
constante.
there must
É preciso
be
uma
a constant
flexibilização que
update.
permita
There
que
must
eles
be a
estejam
flexibility,
dentro desses processos. Então, para mim,
they must be flexible so that they can be
olhando para o futuro,
in
a
this process. For
capacitação
me,
é
looking at
elemento
the
central
future,
e essa
a
capacitação
capacity
deve se
building is
basear
a
nos diferentes
central element, and this must be
intervenientes
based on
nas
different
necessidades específicas, como nós vimos
stakeholders
no
in
contexto
on
dos
specific
55
activities,
países,
as we
dos
saw
41 que
in the context of
já
55
ratificaram.
countries.
A África é diversa e os sistemas internos são diversos. Para nós, dos ganhos, neste caso, foi a harmonização do nosso sistema nacional de educação em base às qualificações. O que significa que as necessidades da capacitação também vão diferenciar de país para país. Então, precisamos, como próximos passos também, cada país identificar quais são as suas demandas, quais são os stakeholders que devem envolver nesse processo. A outra questão que é muito central e que eu sou produto dela é a questão da sinergia. É a questão da sinergia, tanto interna, regional, quanto a nível do nosso continente. Então, precisamos ainda encontrar, em África se diz, para problemas complexos, nós precisamos construir uma força-tarefa. Então, a questão da implementação dos quadros nacionais, como nós experimentamos, é uma tarefa complexa e ninguém consegue caminhar sozinho, chegar ao resultado se nós não estivermos conectados. E o último aspecto que eu queria salientar aqui, os outros depois poderei, se houver mais espaço, é a questão da comunicação. Nós aprendemos que o envolvimento, desde a base, a comunicação, ele cria confiança, desenvolve confiança, desenvolve transparência. Então, este elemento para mim é importante também que seja contemplado em termos de ações para os próximos passos e acreditamos que a partir daquilo que foi o projeto do ACQF, não é? Tome outro nome, não tome, nós poderemos ver o que nós fazemos, o que nós podemos fazer a nível dos países e das regiões para continuarmos a termos uma plataforma e continuarmos ainda a disseminarmos. Quanto mais há envolvimento, mais engajamento existe e acontece nesse processo, tanto do desenho quanto da implementação. Eu suponho que os meus minutos já excederam, porque eu tinha marcado aqui para mim, mas penso que já excedi e gostaria de parar por aqui e agradecer esta oportunidade a todos os participantes e aproveito também cumprimentar aos nossos representantes da União Africana, da ETF e da União Europeia. Muito obrigado.
Of the African Union and the European Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Maria Luisa. We take note of your very elaborate intervention, very useful intervention. You reiterated one of the main strategic objectives of the ACQF, which is really to serve as an enabler for other national qualifications framework to spring up. We are glad that at least this first phase served that purpose in the case of Mozambique. You also spoke to the capacity development elements of the ACQF and the need to continue the good work that work package did throughout this process. We saw member states engaging through that platform. We saw REX engaging through that platform, sharing experience and best practices. We also spoke to the need for a synergistic approach. This cannot be overemphasized. Thank you so much, Professor Maria. We'll move now to Professor Miriam Chiaba, the CEO of Zambia Qualification Authority. The questions are the same, Professor. What are, in your views, the main benefits and achievement of the ACQF development project? What are the key lessons for the Zambia Qualification Authority? What are your main expectations going forward? What are your recommendations for the next phase? Over to you, Professor Chiaba.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Thank you, everyone, and for this opportunity to just and share our views on the ACQF project Special recognition to Eduarda, the team that's been working on this project, and all of us for making it a success, because we would not be sitting here today looking at the outcome of the ACQF project. For Zambia, we had two roles. Firstly, as a beneficiary of the project, but also we participated as presenters to the webinars, as experts, also developing 2 of the 10 guidelines. And through the process, I think a lot was learned, but I want to start by highlighting the achievement of getting the results that we currently have amidst COVID. No sooner than the project was launched, COVID hit. And so the plans initially would have been face-to-face and so on. Achievement of that, initially, I know that for the task team, it was a tall order to ensure that we get the mapping study done and all that amidst COVID, which really affected all of our countries. But I think the greatest is that today we're sitting and saying we have 10 guidelines. We went through the training sessions, and we have tools that we're able to use. So for us, that is an achievement for the continent to get to where we are. And we see that the guidelines that were developed, that have been developed by the different experts, the training modules, these are important resources. That's a great benefit that we see for all of us on the continent, being users of the ACQF documents. This is there's a pot of resource. When you look at the ACQF website, for countries that we see that countries that didn't have NQFs, they have a reference tool where they can go to and see the best practices in the different areas for continental for qualifications framework development. So this is a very good tool, and it looks at the different aspects that the different regions face. It brought together stakeholders and input and experiences from different countries. So you see that even for us at Zambia, for instance, in certain areas like our credit accumulation and transfer system, we have been able to learn quite a lot to shape and reshape our CAT systems. So we see that the process that we went through, the outcomes, really the outputs of this project have been very, very useful to running the authorities. What it has brought together is also a community of experts. We see that the training sessions that we had, the initial one and the second one, the last one that we had in South Africa, brought together the community, and we were able to share different experiences, and we saw that countries that did not have NQFs get lessoned to have these in place. We are seeing countries like Mauritius now looking conclusively at their CAT system to just enhance it and so on. We see, I think, the work that's happening in Cape Verde and so on. So we're seeing that a lot of us have actually benefited from this process, and we have learned to work together. But importantly, wearing my other hat, I'm the former chairperson of the Africa Qualification Verification Network. We've seen that we've brought together a team of verification experts that are now sharing information much more regularly because of the support that the AQVN got from the ACQF project in holding webinars together, bringing together different practitioners, and amidst COVID, being able to assist each other in sorting out issues of recognition of qualifications in as far as verification of qualifications. So this has been a clear process, very transparent. Everyone was engaged. And if you were not engaged, it's because you didn't want. So we were all given the opportunity to participate, but we took advantage of that. In terms of expectations, going forward, the expectation is that this shouldn't just end with the documents being on the ACQF website. We need to see implementation. We need to have a clear implementation plan. And the start point is we need to have the validation of the ACQF outputs. We need to have that validation and the adoption of that by the political leaders, so that in the different countries, all the signatories of this will be able to now implement as technocrats who've done our work. So we need now to get to the next stage and ensure that the implementation is based on a validated requires resources. So the resources that we've been getting, the support from GIZ, support from the AU, all that is required going forward, because otherwise we will end up with all this work that we've done and we're not going to the next step. But realizing the importance of the ACQF, we do need to have those resources committed as soon as possible, so that then we get to phase 2 and we see implementation happening, so that then we can run with the implementation. On the role specific now for the qualifications authority like ZAQA for us is not to wait until that validation happens. The guidelines that have been given, the training modules that are there are very self-explanatory, very easy to adapt and run with. They give best practice in our area of expertise. So it's for us to pick the ones that fit in our countries, so that then we can start implementing. From a country perspective, there are good practices that are there that are recommended. And we will do well to just strengthen our NQFs for us who have NQFs that are running. The modules on learning outcomes, the modules on validations, all the modules that have been done are very, very important, even currently, even before that adoption is done. And the same for us should then be replicated at a regional qualifications level. We're looking for us at SADC, looking at ECOWAS. There is a lot in there that can be adopted, and we do not have to wait until validation at the continental level for us to work with that, because these generally, we are the practitioners and we've said yes. So for Zambia, also going forward, is to ensure that we advocate for this, the validation of the guidelines and the policy documents and all that comes with it. So we advocate with the political leaders, because the political leaders are the ones that eventually will say, yes, let's proceed. So it's to have an advocacy, a good advocacy strategy, to have a good communication strategy in ensuring that our countries are on board, ensuring that they know what the ACQF is all about and the benefit that arise from the ACQF, and beyond that, ensuring that we maintain the stakeholder collaboration that we have attained through this interaction. I know that now I can pick up, my email and write to Cameroon, and I will be able to be assisted. So to maintain and to go forward without looking back, and to also just encourage each other where we see that we need another country's support in the development of the NQF. We should be available to do that. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I want to also take this opportunity to just wish everyone a festive season, and wish the ACQF all the best as we look at the next steps, which I hope will be very soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Chiyaba, for that very powerful intervention. You've encouraged us to harness the low-hanging fruits within this process, to leverage on the connections that we've built throughout this process. You've also tasked us as as the political lead for this project, that is the AUC, to ensure expedited validation process by the AU member states with a clear implementation plan going forward. Thank you so much, Professor Chiamba, for that. Now let's move to the Rex. Let's hear from IGAD, Dr. Kebede. IGAD is also developing a regional qualifications framework. I'm aware they've gone through some sort of a validation exercise to that effect. Dr. Kebede, what are, in your views, the main benefits and achievements of the ACQF development process? What are the key lessons for the future? The second question is, again, what are your main expectations for the next phase of the ACQF? How can IGAD contribute to the ACQF and make it a reality for our continent? Over to you, Dr. Kebede.
Thank you, Manu. Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you, colleagues, for all the interventions this morning, and also for the opportunity to invite IGAD to reflect its perspectives and views on both what we gained from the ACQF process and also on what we expect in the coming years. My name is Kebede Kasa. I'm the Senior Coordinator for IGAD Education, Science, Technology, and Innovation, ESDI. And we have been working on a similar project at regional level. We represent 8 countries, actively 7. I don't want to mention them in the Eastern and Horn of Africa region. We serve about 300 million people. And largely we have a population on the move and affected by quite a range of challenges like conflict, displacement, climate change, and migration. So we are contextualizing the qualification framework on this. And as I say, we are one of the pillars of the African Union. The regional economic communities are supposed to be the pillars. We are implementing a number of the interventions and also the initiatives of the African Union, including Agenda 2063, CISA, and STISA, as well as the teacher training and also the TVET programs. The qualification framework is very important to us. In fact, I can say that we started quite early in 2017 with the adoption of the Djibouti Declaration on Education for Refugees, Returnees, and Host Communities. And then we actually got the approval by the ministers on the process of developing the IGAD Regional Qualifications Framework in 2018 during the second conference of IGAD ministers in charge of education. And then we had been working on the development of the Regional Qualification Framework in partnership with UNESCO, GIDED, and also the African Union itself, the Commission. So we are at a very advanced stage. We have almost done the national surveys on which countries have and which countries are working on, and then how we support the member states in developing the national qualification framework, as we are also working on the regional qualification framework. For your information, the regional qualification framework is at its advanced stage. We had the draft framework, which was validated in a workshop in Tebe in October 2022. We were supposed to have a ministerial conference for the validation of the regional qualification framework this month, but unfortunately, we were requested to delay for next year, early next year. And we are expecting that this could take place in the first quarter of the new year. Having said that, I think what we gain from the ACQF are quite a number. I'll just start by outlining some, like like building the collaborative process. I think the collaboration is very important. We are collaborating with you as the AU. Fortunately, I am the member of the board of the qualification framework development. Though my participation was slightly limited due to a number of factors, including COVID, but most of the work being virtual, I had the opportunity to engage with you, with Eduarda, and also the other part. So this partnership building is very important. We build consensus on the need for the qualifications framework at the continental level, and that has also accentuated, if not started, the regional qualifications process. We have also benefited from the expertise. I think now the chief consultant developing the IGAD qualification framework is part of the continental qualifications framework. We have gained immense lessons from the leadership and also expertise of Eduarda. I would like to recognize her immense contributions, and we wish to continue benefiting from her expertise. And then I think the platforms that the Continental Qualification Framework has created has also contributed a lot. And then I think we have set through that a common agenda, and very important. And it is a participatory and quite engaging continental versus regional and national process. And then the lessons learned from this process are one, leadership matters. I think the leadership of the AU, the leadership of the experts that are in the EUTF, and then the leadership at regional level are very important, and they are paying. And then I think the other lessons is that partnership building is very important, and in fact it works very well. Partnership with the different actors, state and non-state actors, partnership with international, continental, regional players, and then partnership with donors and also development partners that are very important. And then I think another important lesson I would like to outline is that national ownership of the project, even if it doesn't exist at most of the country level, the countries own the national level initiative, and now they are working with IGAD as well as AU to develop their national qualification frameworks. The national qualification frameworks will be the building blocks for the regional as well as the continental qualification frameworks, and that's where we are busy working with our member states. And then listening to each other is also a very important lesson that we acquired over the last 3 years. We heard a lot from the presentations. We heard a lot from the perspectives. We heard a lot from our partners, and this has contributed a lot for the development of regional cum national qualifications framework. What are our expectations? I think they are articulated again and again by the previous speakers, including the distinguished experts that have taken the floor for the opening statements, and also the distinguished panelists that spoke before me, the colleague from Mozambique and also the one from Zambia. Especially the Zambian experience is very important. We have learned a lot in the in the AU-led training program in South Africa, and as you may have seen, the IGAD region was very heavily represented by all the member states in South Africa, and at the same time also other experts were very curiously and attentively participating in the training as they are desirous of developing and building their own national qualification frameworks based on the experts and the experience of the continental level. So altogether, we had facilitated the participation of 25 plus experts, and then I and my colleague Sagal, who is in charge of the qualification framework at the IGAD level, had taken part in the South African training program. So we listen to that. We appreciate that. And then we take that seriously and then bring it back to our constituencies and also our regional level interventions. So that is really very important. So I think we need to maintain this momentum. We need to keep the leadership of the AU and IGAD in terms of facilitating the development of regional and national qualification frameworks. We need to work very closely with each other, especially we want the AU to work very closely with REX. They are very vital for the domestication of the continental qualification framework, but also for its implementation. And then we need to engage on a broad basis the member states at all levels of our work and seek high-level collaboration with other partners, including the European Union, the government of Germany through GIZ, and then many other on bilateral and multilateral basis. That is very essential for financing, supporting, encouraging the development of both regional and national qualifications frameworks. At the regional level, we really want to thank the AU. We thank the ECW, which actually came in with the support to the development of the qualification framework. We appreciate the work being done by GIZ, and then we also express our gratitude to the support of the European Union, the continued support of the European Union. At the AU level, through the process, we have really built friendship with Eduarda, Emmanuel, Nicolas, who have been at the driving seat, but at the whole, the AU Commission was very, very helpful in working with us. So I think we want to continue with that. We want to build on what we have already started. And then in the years to come, especially in the next year, we should be together to enhance the advocacy, the partnership building, and the final validation of the continental qualification framework at the ministerial level, and then also domesticating it at regional level as well as at member states level. Our role as a regional economic community is very immense in terms of bridging the gap between the AU and the member states, and also identifying the felt needs at various levels, and also especially for the qualification framework and the recognition of prior learning, especially in the context of the highly affected displacement communities. And these are very critical. I think I will ask for the continued collaboration between us to IGAD and the AU, and then we encourage Eduardo to work with us. We thank you very much for all those immense contributions to the continent, which are very vital. Thank you very much, and I stop here. If you have questions, I will be available to respond. Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kibede. Thank you so very much for those valuable contributions, stating the need to maintain the momentum and build on this good work that has started. Let's now move to Professor Rodolphine Wamba from Cameroon, the Deputy Director, University Accreditation, Ministry of Higher Education. Professor Rodolphine, are you with us? Great.
Merci de me passer la parole. Avant de commencer, j'aimerais profiter de l'occasion pour dire
Muito obrigado por me passar a palavra. Antes de começar, gostaria de dizer mais uma vez bom dia a todos os participantes, a Eduarda muito em particular, que sempre esteve à nossa disposição.
Say thank you to Eduarda again,
Que é a maior interveniente destas atividades e é graças a ela que nós estamos nestas atividades. Gostaria de, em nome dos Camarões, agradecer à União Africana, à União Europeia e a todos os parceiros por este programa. E como foi referido, e bem, a nossa aventura começou no mês de setembro, em Addis Abeba. Neste encontro, Camarões teve a honra de acolher num grupo consultivo e Camarões assegurou a presidência durante 3 anos. Eu acho que a aventura foi muito boa, porque quando observamos o nosso percurso, podemos constatar que há muitos trabalhos realizados a partir dos documentos feitos, a começar pelo documento político da ACQF, com as 10 linhas diretivas e com as 10 formações feitas. Camarões teve também a honra de participar no estudo cartográfico da ACQF e, na altura, tivemos a honra de receber Eduarda nos Camarões, apesar da Covid. Eduarda teve a coragem de visitar os Camarões. Embora no princípio não saberíamos qual seria o resultado. Muito obrigado por esta coragem, Eduarda. Não devemos esquecer as formações que foram feitas. Tivemos cerca de 20 webinars que se tratou de várias aprendizagens por pares, e Camarões beneficiou durante estes anos de trabalho, porque no mês de setembro passado procedemos com a validação técnica do draft do nosso quadro nacional de certificação de qualificações. E é graças a esta documentação e a abordagem proposta, e graças a todo este trabalho que foi capitalizado, e foi assim que nós pudemos ter hoje a validação técnica do nosso quadro, ou seja, do projeto de quadro. É claro que o trabalho continua, porque devemos apresentar este esboço às autoridades nacionais e que o trabalho de enriquecimento deste documento continue. É, no entanto, a este nível que nós estamos já em fase de recrutamento do especialista que poderá acompanhar a equipa na implementação do quadro nacional de certificações. Ainda nestes termos, aprendemos muito, tiramos muitas lições, principalmente porque tivemos a chance de ter diferentes setores que trabalharam juntos. O Ministério do Emprego e da Formação Profissional, o Ministério do Ensino Secundário. E quero aproveitar esta ocasião para expressar mais uma vez a minha gratidão em nome dos Camarões por ter hoje um especialista camaronês que faz parte do grupo de especialistas da ACQF. Falo de Deodon e quero expressar a nossa gratidão por este fato. O trabalho continua e muito bem nos Camarões. O que nós gostaríamos é de continuar a beneficiar do acompanhamento da ACQF e que, a nível continental, uma vez que a ACQF se trata de uma instituição da União Africana, seria importante que, enquanto avançamos na implementação do nosso quadro nacional de certificações, que pensemos ao mesmo tempo num reagrupamento regional, nomeadamente na África Central.
So that if on the Central Africa, if
que
we are on
seja
the
a
same level
níveis menos ou mais avançados, devemos, no entanto, pensar num reagrupamento regional. Podemos mencionar a
East
questão da
Africa
África
and Southern Africa. And also, I would like to
Oriental,
seize
África
this time
Austral. Quero também
to
aproveitar esta ocasião para
to advocate
advogar para que esta
that
comunicação
we
que
must
deve ser
maintain
mantida
communication
continue, e uma vez que temos
because
uma
we
rede
have access to
ACQF que é muito
ACQF
rica,
very
eu quero
which
que
have a
seja
lot
uma
of
referência,
information
porque
on their website as well. And we
para que
need
a
all
cada
this
vez que
information.
tenhamos
Even this morning,
alguma
I went
necessidade,
to
possamos aceder e que
I went on the
possamos
website to check
ter acesso
training
a formações,
material and so on. And
e foi graças ao módulo que a Eduarda me
told me
apresentou.
that these modules are being
Apesar de
translated
não existir ainda uma
in
tradução
French.
em francês,
So
só
it
para
is to show
mostrar
you
o
the
interesse
interest
que
that
nós
we have to this process and to
demonstramos por este
ACQF,
site.
which is a
Aproveitamos
reference to us. I'd like to
esta
seize also
ocasião para
moment to say
pedir à
that
União
to
Africana
speak to the African
que
Union to say,
procure
let's look at which
identificar
level
modos
we
de
can call on
implicar todos
all
os países
countries
que
which are
assinaram
signatories
o documento
so
de
that
Addis Abeba,
we try
para que os países que
together
ainda
we
não
try to
têm
put
implementem
have a
uma agência
national
de garantia de
agency for
qualidade,
the
porque esta
quality
instituição
assurance
é
assurance
bastante
because
importante
we
e em
don't have
Camarões
it
ainda
in
não
Cameroon.
temos.
When this
Logo que
national
esta
agency
agência
for
será
quality assurance will be
implementada,
established, it will be very easy
muito
to
facilmente poderemos
move
nos movimentar a nível interior
within
para
it
questionar
and
outros
surveys,
atores
questions,
neste quadro da
and
validação
also
de
on the
experiência.
ministries to see the progress.
No ensino
But
superior,
us on
ainda não
the
temos um
higher
quadro.
tertiary
Eu
education
acho que uma
ministry, we
agência
have progress.
permitiria
It is
reforçar
important that we boost
a
all
implementação desse
sectors
instrumento.
the implementation of this
O
instrument.
que eu estou a
So
fazer
that
aqui
is
é mais
really an advocacy that
uma
I'm making.
advocacia. E só para
And as well,
terminar, queria dizer que
as
enquanto
long as
o trabalho
the
técnico
technical work is
esteja bem
made
avançado, é
progress,
importante que os nossos países
more countries
ratifiquem
must
e adotem
ratify and adopt
esta
this
plataforma
platform
ACQF
which
que
is
está
being
em vias de
implemented,
implementação. Assim
because
que os técnicos
though the
terminem, é importante
politicians
que
say
os políticos
that we are
ratifiquem,
confident
porque
and so
estamos
on,
todos conscientes
we would like to see
de
Central
trabalhar na África
Africa
Central e facilitar a
working
mobilidade
together
dos
to
nossos
facilitate the mobility
jovens
of workers
trabalhadores e
so
trabalhadoras
that
para
the
que
certification
os certificados
in a
sejam
country
reconhecidos
is
num
also
país e no
the
outro
same
sem muitas
accepted in another
dificuldades.
country.
É
So that
evidente que
it is
o trabalho a
important that
nível
we
político seja
enlarge that
terminado
work scope into other
e não
countries. I would
quero
like not,
levar
I
muito
will not
tempo.
take long.
Queria
I
agradecer mais uma
would
vez a
like
todos os
to say
atores, a
thank
começar por nós
you to the
mesmos,
stakeholders, and we
porque
thank even
trabalhamos de
ourselves
certa
for the
forma.
progress we've made so far.
Muito
Eduarda,
obrigado, Eduardo,
once
mais uma
more,
vez.
thank you for your continued support as well.
Obrigado aos Camarões. É sempre prazer.
Thank you so much, Professor Rodolphine. We now move to the last but not the least panelist, Mr. Amikao Mendes, the coordinator UC SNQ Cape Verde, to share your thoughts and provide recommendations for the next phase of the ACQF. How can your organization contribute to the ACQF and make it a reality for the continent? Over to you.
Good morning to you all from Cape Verde. My name is Amilcar Mendes. I'm the coordinator of the National System for Institutions. On behalf of Cape Verde, also thank you for the opportunity you have allowed us to be part of this process, which is a highly important process in the construction ACQF for Africa. First and foremost, I would like to talk a bit more about the sustainable development in Africa. Uh, I think that we have three grounds which would allow us to have developed Africa. First is economic and social stability. The second one, the choice that we have in terms of mechanisms which would enable this various development, and the the third is the aim of shared prosperity, the prosperity of all the Africa population, regardless of the social and stability. And one of the major enabler of the development of the country is the development of human capital. This is unquestionable. This will have impact on, will contribute for the innovation and increase productivity of our population. And in this African qualification framework is very important for development of competencies and qualification, which will allow us to develop this human capital. We want to have a free movement of people and commerce in Africa, and we want to make sure that all the African students will have qualifications, and these African continental framework for education will be very, very key in the achievement of all this. And this project has brought a set of benefits not only for Cape Verde, but for all different countries. I will talk about the support of all this institute from the point of view of political and institutional development. We have, it will give, it will facilitate the movement and engagement of learners through various countries, and this will have a huge benefit for all countries. The issue of participation of all the countries, the articulation in terms of network, which has been put in place when trying to establish this project. I would also to emphasize or to note the harmonization of the information as well as innovation, including systematization of this information which was gathered throughout this period using different platforms, which has allowed us to have access to all this information on this very same instrument. The only thing that I would like to request is that this information will also be available in Portuguese. Are you still listening to me? Oh, thank you. Yes, we are listening. So regarding the important aspect for the success of this project, I would like to highlight four major aspects. First is the political commitment by the member countries to institutionalize this instrument, being this a reference instrument for us to be able to compare the different system of education. And this will allow people to learn throughout life, having equal opportunities in life. The other issue that I would like to highlight is the establishment of measures in order to incentivize the establishment of these frameworks in countries where they are not yet respecting all the rich diversity that we have in Africa in terms of education. The adoption of measures so that the certificates and diplomas issued by all these institutions may have to need to be clear in terms of referencing what has been done. So this needs to be clear in terms of diplomas and certificates. Finally, the other aspect is adoption of measures for this is a way that we need to chart. So all of the countries need to be committed in the adequation of certifications to the national framework, and finally, the referencing of national and regional frameworks. This needs to be referred or in line with regional frameworks. But then there's other important aspect is the issue of credit transference in Africa, transfer in Africa. We need to use this to make sure that we are able to transfer this knowledge, because we also need to have a set of instruments which will allow us to operationalize this continental framework. By way of contributions to Cape Verde, we have a set of first the development of competencies. It allowed us to develop major competencies within the system of qualifications, as well as national framework. We also allowed us to understand the variety of different frameworks existing in Africa. This also allowed us to systematize our national framework. This is 10 years old, but with this approach, it allowed us to put it more systematic.
Queria destacar aqui papel muito importante que esse projeto teve para que hoje pudéssemos estar nesse
Above all, this process has allowed us, for instance, to be able to compare our national framework for training with European framework for education. So this project has been very important for us. And so through a pilot process, we have now comparing our national qualification framework with the one from Europe. And this will allow us to be to grant more will trust more the qualification which are conducted and are being done here in Cape Verde. So for us, this project has had a very huge importance. I also would like to congratulate and commend the African Union, as well as the European Union, and all the stakeholders who have participated in this project, which is very important for Africa. And finally, we would like us to develop a culture of recognizing the knowledge which exists in Africa. We need to acknowledge the qualifications done or produced in Africa, which will allow the creation and development of a good human resources. And that, with that being said, I'll thank you very much, and thank you all. Thank you, Cape Verde. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Muito obrigado.
Amical, for that wonderful insights, wonderful presentation on the benefits of the ACQF to Cape Verde and how Cape Verde can in turn contribute to the ACQF. In the interest of time, permit me to now pass the floor to Eduarda to perhaps, before moving to the next session, give a very brief summary of this panel discussion and take us to the next session. Over to you, Eduarda.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Indeed, let us be very, very quick and synthetic in this very quick summary. So, dear panelists from the different countries, we had today 5 panelists, and your insights about how you lived all this process, this road, have been extremely helpful and, of course, also emotional to all of us. We have all been involved, and some of you have participated very actively, contributed very actively to the process. If I can just mention Cape Verde, for example, Cabo Verde has contributed with maybe 5 presentations in peer learning webinars, in the training, in the training programs, and this was so incredibly helpful for this entire process of peer learning, knowledge sharing, and knowledge creation based on African experiences. This is just an example, but Zambia is also another example, also with a number of presentations on credit system, on the NQF, the leadership also with the AQVN, and Cameroon as well. Cameroon presented on the NQF, on recognition of prior learning, validation des acquis de l'expérience. So all your contributions have been really fundamental. Without your contributions, the process would have not happened. Simply, we would not have reached the wealth of outputs that that the project has managed to reach. So, if I would just say a few words out of your insights about the past, let's say the road we walked together, and the future. The words are learning together, learning with each other, then networking. Another one is visibility for your national qualifications frameworks. So visibility that in many cases was not there, and that this process has helped very much. Shared prosperity. So that's a very interesting idea just mentioned by Amilcar, shared prosperity and equality of opportunities. And some other participants in the past mentioned NQFs in Africa are instruments also for peace between countries because they support fair mobility, systematization, systematic approach, these platforms, open platforms for mutual learning. And then, of course, this very strong call for the political validation that is now, let's say, the important topic ahead, the important objective ahead, and the African Union is, of course, driving this process. Thank you very much. Emmanuel, we cannot hear you in case.
Thank you so much, Eduarda, for that wonderful summary, putting everything together and giving us a direction for our next course of action. Without further ado, I think it's best we then move to session 3. I think you would lead this session, Eduarda.
Okay, thank you very much. So I just wanted to mention first that we will still have 5 minutes for participants who would like still to raise their hand and say something in very brief, let's say, synthetic terms about how you lived the process and your recommendations for the future. But now let us move then to this substantive session 3, in which we have the 2 last outputs, final outputs that have been just finalized of the ACQF project. So first of all, let us pass the floor to William Odhiambo. He's going to share with us very brief, please, if possible, William, just 10 minutes, your very brief presentation on the main findings of the study on the complementarities between ACQF and the African Continental Free Trade Area. William, karibu, asante sana. I know that you are going to do this in a very synthetic and clear manner. Thank you. The floor is yours. Then, after William, we pass the floor to the team from CINOP. This team is going to present then very briefly, also 10 minutes, the handbook on competence-based training in TVET, a renewed view. So we have now a substantive session, content rich. William, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Eduarda. And thank you everyone for being here, for the opportunity. Sorry, I kind of celebrated the World Cup a little too loudly yesterday, so I may have lost my voice. Forgive me if I sound funny. But I don't know if I'm able to show my screen. Let me also recognize my colleague Walter, who is also in the Walter Dondi, who is also here. We did the study with him, and several of you were respondents in the study. Now, we'll just do 4 items listed here. Talk about the objectives and methodology, the internal mechanisms and linkages, ACQF as an enabler of trade, and recommendations. The study was an exploratory study to identify and propose a range of policies and mechanisms enabling synergy and mutually reinforcing interplay and cooperation between ACQF and AFTA. We adopted a qualitative analytical method with narrative approaches that, with a primary data collection tool being secondary data collection, desktop review analytical approaches, combined with primary data collection done through key informant interviews. And several of you were actually our respondents, and we are very grateful for that. I'm trying to, okay, it has refused. So we've come up with several layers of linkages and mechanisms between ACQF and AFTA. And these are strategic linkages. We recognize that there is a lot of congruence in terms of policy, vision, and just an understanding of where the two instruments are heading towards. And so that presents an opportunity for linkages at that level. There are proposals on structural and governance linkages. We are proposing cross-participation, whether at the structure or governance of ACQF and AFTA, and at the grassroots levels within the countries, the NQFs and the AFTA coordinating teams within the countries. There are technical linkages in terms of support from ACQF to AFTA and the other way around. Service delivery linkages, including capacity building and awareness. You realize that AFTA enjoys a lot of awareness continentally. ACQF is yet to get there, and so it can actually leverage on that. The other way around, ACQF has a very good network of technical persons that AFTA can take advantage of. And finally, monitoring and evaluation linkages, studies, data management reports that can be shared between the two, ACQF and AFTA. The planned ACQF activities and potential linkages with AFTA include referencing of national qualifications, frameworks, and systems to the ACQF, includes support of recognition of prior learning. There's a lot of work that has gone into that, and I recognize the work done by the team here today on RPL, and just how that can merge into the AFTA work. ACQF qualifications platform, including the database and the development of qualifications, profiles, and common continental use related to new and emerging tasks, technologies, etc. So there are benefits of better linkages between ACQF and AFTA. I know several of you are familiar with these, but I'll still just go through the same. One, there are benefits as regards qualifications and skills, finally. And so AFTA will benefit from the referencing, while on the other hand, ACQF will benefit from recognition and mobility. In terms of service delivery, I have mentioned that AFTA would benefit from capacity development programs of ACQF, while ACQF will benefit from the awareness and popularity of AFTA across the continent. Even beyond the continent, somehow political actors prefer trade and really find trade to be more popular than education or qualifications. And so riding on that would make both to benefit. The technical support AFTA will benefit from the large pool of experts in skills and human capital development in the NQF, SQF networks, while ACQF will benefit from the pool of experts after coordination and structure. Again, AFTA is owned by the governing agencies in the countries. Collaboration with ACQF is owned by NQF, governing agencies in the countries. Collaboration with AFTA team will bring value add. And on the other hand, AFTA also has national coordinating teams in each country that could support ACQF. Finally, we've mentioned on the measurement, the rich library of studies by AFTA would benefit, by ACQF will benefit AFTA, and AFTA monitors trade data at a continental level more closely. Trading services, labor mobility data would be very useful in terms of measuring the efficacy, the reach, the implementation of ACQF beyond just the qualitative approaches. ACQF is an enabler of free trade. Stakeholders across the continent are confident that the new continental qualifications framework is an enabler of trade and economic development. This was reinforced across board by almost all respondents. And as an enabler of trade, it has 4 key elements to it, which includes labor mobility, because it facilitates qualification referencing. This in turn enable qualified people to travel beyond borders with confidence that their skills and competencies are recognized in the host country. And so there is a lot of labor mobility that happens when there is qualifications referencing. And secondly, in terms of value chains enabler, the ACQF really enables, because of the learning outcomes, it enables value chains as regards skills and competencies. And this is an important element of the AFTA. And so it is a value chains enabler. Just that it does so in terms of human capital development and perhaps trading services. There's a skills portability, and skills portability means that you can carry your skills wherever opportunities occur and still be able to work. And finally, there is a common language, ACQF, and I think this is one of the most exciting parts for me, gives a common language to all the participating countries, NQFs and RECs, and ensures that that common language then facilitates trade. Because for trade to happen, there needs to be proper communication, and that communication is facilitated by a common language. So I want to perhaps highlight some of the challenges that we foresee might need to be overcome before then now these linkages can be experienced and the synergies can be seen or observed for the 2 instruments and institutions supporting them. And so one, there is insufficient data and awareness. Several speakers and panelists that have spoken have mentioned on the need for awareness. And I want to reiterate on that there's need for awareness creation for ACQF. Secondly, there is insufficient expertise in Africa. Yes, we recognize that ACQF has brought together a pool of experts across the continent, but the pool is still very small compared to the amount of work that still needs to be done. And so there needs to be progressive, continuous learning, as Eduarda has highlighted. There is a lack of political will in some areas on labor mobility. Somehow, and I think this is where now even ACQF itself will play a role in terms of creating trust that the people coming into our country are qualified nurses, qualified doctors, qualified teachers. And so that trust hasn't been there. And because of that, there hasn't been political will on labor mobility. Diversity among member states. Africa is very diverse, whether in terms of language, in terms of economic development, in terms of education. And that diversity has proven that there are some countries that are ahead and others that still needs a lot of work in terms of coming together, both as regards trade and qualifications frameworks. Non-tariff barriers. Countries still have stringent conditions for foreigners to live, study, and work. And this is going to slow down some of the benefits that we've highlighted in the slide before. There is competition among countries, which is natural. And this has made some countries to be uneasy, allowing players or workers or skilled personnel from the other competing countries into their country. And of course, we anticipate that the excitement around AFTA will bring this competition to a level of complementarity as opposed to negative competition. There is a social security mobility, which has been a problem, and especially in some of the established regions on the matter on qualifications framework like SAG and East African Community, carrying social security, from one country to another where you're going to work hasn't been actualized. Several RECs are already working on it, but it's still a barrier or a challenge that needs to be overcome. And finally, development of NQFs. ACQF as a reference framework allows comparison between two or more NQFs. And several countries have made progress on this. However, several others are still yet to get here in terms of implementation. And so that work is still in progress, and we hope that it will still get somewhere at the end of the day. So this is my final slide. Our recommendations are fivefold. There's on the structure and governance, there are recommendations as to what are the ways in which ACQF can be nicely anchored so that there is collaboration between ACQF and AFTA. We've made a raft of recommendations, and I would propose that you read the study and just interact with those details so that then you appreciate our reasoning. We propose a memorandum of collaboration between AFTA and ACQF. This will ensure that both organizations that support and institutions and the instruments speak to each other, appreciate the strengths, what's being brought on board, and where they are both targeting the common direction of both. Third, national and regional cross-coordination and cross-collaboration. I've already mentioned on this. Policy making and negotiations in terms of some of the items on the table for AFTA will significantly benefit from the input of the ACQF players. And on the other side as well, ACQF will significantly benefit from AFTA's input. And finally, and I've mentioned on this, I think this is the third time, awareness, information, and advocacy needs a collaborative approach between ACQF and AFTA. There is more information available. Let me finish by saying a big thank you to Eduarda for the support offered to the process of the study throughout this time. Thank you very much. We appreciate and we wish ACQF all the best. Asante sana.
Asante sana. So many thanks, William, for the work done and for all the exchanges we had, for all the interviews you managed to carry out. It's a really very important piece of information and data that you have collected. Thank you. Now we pass the floor immediately to our colleagues from CNOP, EPCA, and Naomi. So EPCA and Naomi are going to very briefly introduce to us all the handbook on competence-based training in TVET, a renewed view. So please, the floor is yours, EPCA, Naomi, and thank you very much in advance. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Eduarda. Knowing that we have very little time left, we will just be very quickly, and all the information can be viewed on the website. So just a short introduction from our side, us being Naomi Byers, who is my colleague, and my name is Epke Vogel. We have worked together, next slide, on this very interesting assignment that CNOP was contracted for by the European Training Foundation. So thank you very much for your trust and cooperation, Eduarda. So we've been working with two of our experts from our team on qualifications. So two team members who work for our National Qualifications Framework Coordination Unit that CNOP is managing on behalf of the Ministry of Education of the Netherlands. So we are a Dutch organization. I'm the coordinator of this project, and we were working with Eduarda also as a reviewer and coordinator on behalf of the ETF. Can you manage to go to the next slide, Naomi? Yes, yeah, okay, so this is the one I'm presenting now. So on the basis of discussions with ETF, we selected a number of countries with whom we worked together on the review that I will explain to you in 1 minute. So a review was done to better understand the situation of applying competency-based education and training in a number of African countries. So what is the current state of play? So these are the countries: Cameroon, Cape Verde, Egypt, Ghana, Kenya, Morocco, Mozambique. So they were selected really on the basis of language groups, a level of implementation, region, also regional coverage. So this is for the review. Now, next, very briefly, to tell you something about our organization. CNOP is a national and international center of expertise and research based in the Netherlands. Focus is on TVET, but also on higher professional education and lifelong learning. So we are managing a couple of programs also for the EU programs in the field of technical vocational education. For example, we are the national coordination point for the Dutch NQF. So we work a lot in the field of EQF, NQFs, but also in the field of quality assurance, the ACQF program, Euro guidance for career guidance. And yeah, within these fields of activity, also for example, in quality education, pedagogics, qualification frameworks, educational standards, CNOP works at national and international level. And so competency-based education and training and outcomes-based education and training is something that really is part of our nature, and we introduce that. We have a very strong approach in research and advice activities. Now, if we look at the approach, next slide, for the African handbook for CBT in TVET in African countries, we took a two-step approach in agreement with the European Training Foundation. And one is to really review the current state of play in a very quick snapshot in a couple of African countries. So this included literature review, online stakeholder survey, focus group meetings, or stakeholder workshops with the selected countries. And that was then translated into the handbook. So the results of this review we have used, and of course also our own over 40 years of expertise in competence-based education and training and in international cooperation. We have used for designing this handbook, which is really a practical handbook for practitioners in both policy making and in implementation of competence-based training in technical vocational education and training, and really focusing on a multi-context, a multi-country approach, especially for the African continent. CNOP works in many African countries in the field of TVET, capacity building. We're also a UNESCO UNIVOC center, so the expertise and the review was combined then in the elaboration of the handbook. Next slide. So the review is now currently being translated into a small report, but the handbook is, of course, the most important outcome of our work. So the review is really focusing on a number of research questions around the current state of play. So what are current approaches and types of competence-based training in the selected countries, differences, commonalities? How does these different approaches contribute to improving the performance of the TVET systems in those countries? What are the lessons that we can learn from this review, the meetings that we had with experts, with researchers, with stakeholders? So yeah, this was an important aspect of the review. And then what are the main issues that we need to address in this handbook? Okay, that's next. I think from here, Naomi will take over with some results about the handbook. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you, Epke. I will tell you something more about the second step of our work, and that's the handbook about curriculum-based training. The product of our first step was to make a handbook based on the input from the report and the group decision room or stakeholder meeting with the 6 case countries that Epke told you about earlier. And we wanted to make an interactive handbook so the people who would use the handbook would quickly find the information that they were looking for, but also look into where they are in the process of making CBT education. The target group were the practitioners and policymakers, and we also made connections to relevant sources, references, classifications such as the ACQF, but also ESCO. And we also used concrete examples in the African context to make it more lively and to really have use the handbook in the right context. As you can see in red, we are wondering if there is any feedback, and please give us the feedback if there is any, so we can keep updating the handbook to match the needs of the field. The handbook is divided into 3 sections, where part 1 is mainly the background, so understanding CBT, what is CBT, what are the challenges, and we wrote that on the findings from the first step. And part 2 is implementing CBT. So step 1, a step-to-step guide from the occupational standards to a full-on curriculum. And we end the handbook with some good practices that we got from the countries that were part of this assignment, but also from some short good practices from our own experiences in African countries. And throughout the handbook, there's an integral example. So there's a concrete and defined part that is, so you can see the step-to-step come to life. A little sneak preview from the first part of the handbook, Understanding CBT, some challenges that we noticed from our interviews and the stakeholder workshops. So there are challenges at multiple levels, and it's not that the handbook will tackle all these challenges, but it gives you some insight in what could help to overcome these challenges. And if you are interested in the background of the challenges, the report where EPCO was talking about is also public, so you can see what are the underlying challenges of these challenges. And as I said, implementing CBT is the second part of the handbook, where there's a step-to-step guide from occupational profiles to learning outcomes, to the modelization, to getting it in a curriculum, and implementing and assessing. And there's some visuals of the handbook as well. As I said, it is an interactive handbook, so it's clickable. So you can go to the part that you really need, or can see where you are in the process. And this is for example, as from the I'm sorry, I'm looking for the term for assessment. I'm sorry. And the interactive functionality of the handbook can be determined by these visuals. So there's a magnifying glass to learn more, and there's a connection to previous research and other activities from the ACQF. And we also added some informative clips from all over the world. So everything that there is to know about CBT is shared and can be obtained. Last but not least, of course, there's a link to the NQF and ACQF because in the handbook we elaborate on learning outcomes and how to write them and how they are connected to the ACQF. And that's, of course, through the ACQF level descriptors. We noticed that the use of learning outcomes and CBT is an acceleration of implementation of the NQF, and therefore establish lifelong learning, which is why we're all here together, I guess. For now, thank you so much for your attendance, and I was wondering maybe if there are any questions, but I give the floor back to Eduarda. I think you can manage the question part from the earlier presentation and from our presentation.
Okay. Many thanks, Ebke and Naomi. I want to thank, of course, the SYNOP team for the effort. This was an assignment, let's say, ambitious, very short time allocated for the full assignment. And in the end, it resulted in a very smart handbook that is interactive, it is easy to read, contains the most essential elements. It's not long at all. So anyone can use, can read, and can go deeper because it contains all the elements, to all the hyperlinks and connections to different sources. So it's a new way, in a way, to present content of a handbook. I want also to mention one maybe interesting point. This handbook is actually the result of a request done by SADC Secretariat. And SADC Secretariat was very interested in having ACQF support to the implementation of the TVET strategy of the region. And this competency-based training handbook was one of the important elements the SADC Secretariat considered fundamental. And therefore, we talked with the Secretariat, we put together the most important objectives and scope of the work. And here we have a handbook that is now conceived for the continent as a whole. And we are going simply to adjust certain elements of the handbook to contextualize it to the SADC region. So it's also a way to look and to cope and satisfy, let's say, meet different needs from different regions, starting from a common handbook that can be applicable by everybody, basically, and always contextualized. So again, thank you. So we don't have time for discussion now, but we have indicated in the chat box the URL, the link to the handbook on ACQF website. So you can take then your time and send us any questions. You have also the email contact for your questions, remarks, observations, and so we can continue the conversation. Again, thank you, SYNOP team, and thank you, William team, as well, for the work done. And now we are just really about to finish. We still need, let's say, 10, 12 minutes of your time. And now immediately, Erika is going to show us the poll. So the QR code and also the link to a poll. So with this poll now, we would like simply to have your views, all participants, on a number of questions. So the questions are, I think, quite easy, although there are many different options for your replies. So 2 questions are multiple choice. You can choose 1, 2, or all of the different options that are presented. And 1 question is more just so an open question. You need to write your views. Thank you very much. This is a way to get additional feedback from all of you. We are still 67. We were about 71 just half an hour ago, but of course, participants are busy. So the first question, what ACQF activities and outputs do you appreciate as most useful for your country, for your region, and your personal interest? Again, you can choose as many options as you like. For now, 1 participant has replied. So in the meantime, the different participants are joining the Mentimeter. For participants now. Thank you very much. Already 11 participants, 12 are are responding. Okay. So this is the overall responses so far to this first question. There is then a very strong appreciation for the peer learning webinars, for the training programs, for ACQF training modules, for support to countries, NQF development, networking. Thank you. 28 participants have so far responded. So maybe we can move then to the next. Thank you. Okay, so now we have, and what are your main expectations from ACQF in 2023? Again, you have a number of options and you can select as many as you like out of the possibilities that are provided. This will help us also orient and strengthen some areas. Thank you. Take your time to read all the options. So we have already 18 responses, and we see there is a very good interest in more training. So more peer learning, more training tailored to countries, more support for countries' NQF development and implementation, develop digital tools, databases of qualifications, establish a network, association of African NQFs, good point. Then also more support and cooperation with the regional qualifications frameworks, more cooperation with ADIS Recognition Convention and Global Convention. That's the synergy that was being mentioned earlier. Also dissemination of the ACQF guidelines. Those who prefer to answer later can also do it, and we will consider in any case, yes, it's the response to Gertrude Namubiru from ACA. Okay. There is also continue with the same package of activities, research on new themes and issues also available. Reference your NQF to ACQF is also there with 14 voices. Thank you so much. So, Erika, we can move now to the last question. And this question is then an open-ended question. So, how can your country and your organization contribute to make the ACQF a reality in terms of further implementation? So, for example, advocacy and dissemination of information of ACQF on ACQF, this would be one way of contributing. So let us dedicate 1 or 2 minutes maximum, and then we can conclude our webinar. Here you have to write your proposals. So here we have 4 ideas: sharing of experiences, aim to promote the initiatives in international forums, reference the NQF to ACQF and use ACQF levels on qualifications, refer those interested in RQF and NQF to the website, then sharing of good practice, communication sur l'outil ACQF. You can write more than one idea, of course. Make sure the firstly, make sure the citizens are aware of the existence of the ACQF, of NQF, RQF, and ACQF. Secondly, giving recognition and respect to other NQFs. That's a good point. Sensitization on ACQF and implementation of developed guidelines. Share learnings with other RQFs. Promoting ACQF in international forums. Very good point. Support organization of NQF Network Africa. Participation in events of training events, international, and sharing, peer sharing, advocacy, networking. Then also a point related with after the approval of the NQF, the institution will mobilize the necessary resources and train the necessary stakeholders to be ready for implementation and ownership of the national framework. Dissemination of ACQF to all national stakeholders. Continue to network with RQF representatives. Advocacy and dissemination of information on ACQF. Align our NQF to the ACQF in the near future. Implement the training modules. And a country said will contribute in organizing the dissemination of the ACQF results. Continue. Dr. Kebede is writing in the chat box, continue working with IGAD to support development of NQF. So using the ACQF tools and guidelines, setting up linkages for referencing, participating in ACQF activities, setting up the governance structure based on ACQF model. Then development of NQF, that's a very important contribution indeed to ACQF. Promote community of practice of NQF representatives and those working to have an NQF. Referencing the NQF to ACQF, introducing the ACQF levels on all qualifications, sharing information and enhancing collaborations with other African member countries, and make information on the NQF more transparent and readily accessible. So here we had 16 participants contributing with many very, very pertinent ideas, strategic, and I think also feasible, not impossible or unrealistic. So participate in the exchange of information with regards to development and implementation of national qualifications frameworks, recognition of prior learning and other aspects of NQFs, and promote networking among the ACQF participating countries. I think these are all very fundamental propositions that will, of course, be taken into consideration now in the future steps of the ACQF implementation with AUC in the lead. And I think for AUC, it's also certainly quite interesting to see all these propositions coming directly from the countries, from the stakeholders. Many, many thanks. This is a very, very fresh set of ideas we have here, spontaneous, also reflective and reflected. Thank you very much, colleagues. So now we can simply still have 2 minutes, let's say, for anyone who would like still to say a word or two about your experience, about your views. Please just raise your hand. Whoever would like to speak, it can please take this opportunity now. Yes, Olfa, James, and Maria Gil. So we have 3 participants, 1 minute each. Thank you. And then we can close. Thank you so much. Olfa, merci. Olfa, tu peux parler. Peut-être que tu n'as pas le son connecté. Sinon, on passe alors, Olfa, dès que tu auras...
Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui, on t'entend très bien. Merci beaucoup, Olfa.
Can you hear me?
Merci beaucoup, Eduarda. Alors, je vais être très brève.
Thank you,
vraiment.
Eduarda.
Tout d'abord, je ne peux pas passer au fil du sujet sans vous
I
remercier.
cannot
Vous avez
go
fait un
to
travail
this
vraiment
subject.
impressionnant.
You are
Merci à vous pour
doing a
votre
great work.
professionnalisme, pour votre
Thank
touche
you
humaine qui
for
était
your
présente le
human
long de
touch
ces
which
travaux.
was present
Merci aux experts
throughout
ACQF,
this work.
toute
Thank
l'équipe,
you
les
for the
organismes,
experts
toute la
in
communauté ACQF.
ACQF
Merci
and all the
énormément.
community of
Ce que je
ACQF.
trouve
Just
devant
want
moi,
to
c'est
thank you.
impressionnant
What
comme
I
approche
find in front of me,
fondée,
which is
concertée, tout le monde
amazing
est là. Il y a
approach
beaucoup de
to
richesse qui est générée en termes de
the
documents,
approach
de
to
webinaires,
everyone.
renforcement de capacité,
There is
développement
a
des
lot of
compétences.
documents
Vous avez
which
fait
has
une
been
conduite de
developed.
changement vers de
We
nouveaux
have done
paradigmes pour notre
a
continent et
combined
pour tous les pays.
toward
Ce que
a
je
paradigm
propose, et pour
shift
être
for our
vraiment
countries and
très
continents.
concrète,
What
j'ai
I
3 recommandations.
propose, I have
Je
3
voudrais bien qu'on
recommendations.
ait une boîte à
Not
outils,
one,
celle
we need to
qui est
have a
équivalente à la boîte à
toolbox
outils qui a été
which is
diffusée en
equivalent
2016, si vous vous rappelez très bien,
to
Edouard, pour
what
les
was
pays de l'Union
established
européenne
in
et les pays,
2017 for the countries of
c'est-à-dire
the
les pays
European Union
partenaires, pour se
and
mobiliser pour de
partners,
meilleures certifications.
so that
Cet
we
outil,
mobilize
c'est axé
for
sur
the
le suivi et
good
l'évaluation et ça va
result,
se baser
and so
sur
that we
toute la
may do
documentation qui est développée.
follow-up and
Pourquoi?
monitor,
Pour que chaque pays se
so
positionne
that each
par rapport
country
à
will
l'objectif
position
visé,
itself
avoir un cadre national qui est mis en place
vis-à-vis
pour pouvoir faire
this
le
program, so
référencement
that
et
each
ça va
country
nous
will
donner
have
des activités
their own
vraiment très concrètes par rapport à chaque pays.
national
L'autre chose, c'est la communication. Il faut vraiment communiquer
qualification
à haut
framework.
niveau par rapport à ces
Secondly, we
travaux.
need to
Comme
communicate
recommandation, c'est un
based
communiqué
on
de la part
this
de l'Union
work. We
européenne
need
qui
a
adresse, de l'Union
communique
africaine plutôt, qui est adressé
of the
à
African
tous les
Union,
pays
which is
pour
sent to the member
adopter ces
states, so
travaux-là
they
de
can
haut niveau et
adopt
que ça
these
soit
high-level
vraiment d'ordre
works,
stratégique.
so that
Ma troisième
this will be
recommandation, la
strategic.
finale,
My
pensez,
third
je pense qu'on doit
recommendation, the
penser
last,
ensemble à
we need
un
to
fonds
think
ACQF. Beaucoup de pays,
to
je
have
pense qu'ils ont des entraves
a
quant à la
ACQF,
généralisation de leur cadre
because
de
most
certification par rapport à
countries
tous les secteurs
have
de formation,
an
les
issue
secteurs
with
éducatifs,
this, on especially
probablement
when it comes
dû
to this
à des
training
problèmes d'ordre de
area
financement. Donc, pensons à ça.
or
Merci
vocational
encore.
area. We
Je
need
suis
to
très
think
contente
about
d'être
all this.
parmi vous
Once
et
more, I'm
restons en
happy
contact.
to have been part of here, and we
Merci
will
beaucoup.
be contact. Thank you.
Shukran jazilan, Olfa, pour ces recommandations et aussi pour enfin
Thank you for
les
this
mots
appreciation
d'appréciation. C'est toujours très,
and
très
the
important,
appreciation
motivant, et
words,
ça nous
which is
encourage.
very
Merci.
important. It encourages
James
us.
Mwewa from Zakwa, Zambia. Then we have Maria Gil from Angola and Matthias from Cameroon. So now, James, 1 minute, James.
Thank you so much, Eduarda. Thank you for this platform. May I first and foremost start by congratulating you and of course everyone who participated in the project, the ACQF project, for having worked so hard to see the project to where it is today. Going forward, I feel we have heard a lot of stories. History is not short of stories of documents that were well put together, documents that are so rich in content, but yet devoid of implementation. So I just want to beseech all of us in this meeting to ensure that we continue demonstrating the willingness that we have showed so far to be able to own this project and see to it that we implement the documents that have been born out of this very wonderful and well thought out project. History, unfortunately, will not be so kind on us. We will not be judged so fairly if we fail to implement the outcomes of this project. Thank you so much, Eduarda.
Thank you so much, James, for this very fundamental point. History will not recognize if we do not manage all together with all of you to implement. And that's, I think, the important objective now going forward. Now, Maria Gil, Angola, you have the floor. Thank you, Maria. Maria Madalena from Inares, Angola.
Muito obrigada, Eduarda. Olha, eu não vou repetir o que os nossos colegas já disseram. Eduarda também fez resumo no primeiro painel.
What has
E
been said in the first
também
panel.
os colegas mencionaram outras coisas. Gostava de falar bocadinho sobre desenvolvimento sustentável, sobre o quadro de qualificação, mas também estou bastante ultrapassada.
I would like to talk about the qualifications framework. The thing that I know is that the development project, the ACQF, has come to an end, along with this community. Eduarda has mentioned that we are a little bit emotional now. I would like to remind all of you that we have achieved a lot of participation. And it's true that this program has contributed and will continue contributing for other developments in the region. And this is going to be a reference for other regions. Many people know the process we've gone through and the steps we've taken and the challenges we've faced and how to overcome this challenge. So far, what we have to do is to express our gratitude to all the participants, express the gratitude to Eduarda, who has had a notable engagement throughout all the process. Your coordination helped the engagement, of all of us. And this was very acknowledged by all of us. So I would like to add on top of this, because you are worth thanking. We all acknowledge that. Another thing that I would like to wish you all is the following. I wish you a very good work and a happy festive season for all of you, for our families, for all of us. And it's true that now we have become a very big family. So I wish all of you happy festive season. And I wish that 2023 comes with lots of good things. And may it come with lots of good challenges and opportunities and great continuation for all of you. all of us, I mean.
Maria,
All I
Maria
wanted to say.
Madalena,
Thank you
por
very much, Maria
este-
Madalena, for these,
por esta sua partilha, não
for
só
sharing
do
these
que foi,
inputs,
do que foi realizado de maneira concreta,
mentioning
tecnicamente, mas
what
também
has
por
been
todos
achieved
os
technically, and
sentimentos e
also for
emoções
all
que
the
rodearam o trabalho
emotions
deste processo
and
com a
everything
muita
that
gente envolvida.
surrounded the
Agradeço
process
muito,
and the
foi
people who got
privilégio muito
involved.
grande.
Thank you very much.
So
This
I
has
could
been a very
visit
great
Angola
privilege.
after many, many years in the framework of the mapping study, and all the persons I met and the institutions are today in this meeting. And it was, so these human contacts with institutions, with experts, with stakeholders are certainly one of the most fundamental, let's say, basic factors of success of this process. So thank you so much, Maria Madalena. Estamos em contacto, juntas. Okay, and now, mon cher ami Mathias, du Cameroun, du MINEFOP, qui est un grand travailleur pour le CNC du Cameroun. Merci,
who has worked
Mathias.
hard for Cameroun. Matthias, thank you so much.
Oui, mais il faut parler plus fort peut-être ou bien augmenter le son. Je ne sais
You
pas.
must speak a bit louder or come close to your microphone.
C'est bon. Oui.
Je voudrais associer ma voix à toutes celles qui m'ont précédé et à celles qui vont suivre me succéder pour te dire infiniment merci. Merci parce que ce que tu as comme travail a permis à notre département.
Thank you for everything you have done. Thank you for all your efforts. Because I heard your prof speaking, I can remember again that picture when we met in March 2020. And we are all happy today to see that we have now a ground on which we can have consensus in our countries, and also the knowledge sharing we had an opportunity to have during the webinars and the workshops, because when we speak in our ministries, we will owe this to Edward, because it is a fruit of the Spirit. I would like as well to conclude to thank Dr. Wald that we will do our best to finalize our Cameroonian framework, and we will follow up so that when we heard a colleague from other countries like Angola speaking, we are happy to see that they started and finished with the adoptions. So I'm going to stop there and thank you all and wish you
Merci beaucoup,
a blessed festive season.
Du
Thank you.
MINEFOP Cameroun pour ce témoignage et aussi pour cet
Ministry
engagement.
of Cameroon for the support,
Le
for
mot
the,
engagement s'applique parfaitement,
for
je
the
crois, à vous.
testimony and the
Merci beaucoup,
commitment.
Matthias.
Which is
Donc,
applicable to yourself.
I would like to then, from our side, I think we completed all the activities of this webinar. There was so much to say, to share, and I'm really pleased to see that so many participants are still online, despite the fact that we have 1 hour above schedule. And from my side, I just want to say thank you. I learned so much. My entire family has contributed to this process because we have worked so much through webinars. So everybody was participating in a way. It's a big privilege for me, a big, sincere privilege to have worked with all of you, so many different countries. And I would like to ask you all to please open your cameras. We have not yet finished because I will pass the floor, of course, to Emmanuel for the closing remarks. And from my side, I just want to say thank you again. We will continue. And then the big word now for the future will be implementation and continuation of learning. certainly. And implementation is something that came out very clearly from all your testimonies and reviews and feedback. So I hope that Erika is making a couple of screenshots and so we can share them with you. And happy season, festive season, happy new year with peace and success in all your endeavors and projects, and perfect health, happiness also at home. I pass the floor to Emmanuel for the final remarks and closure. And I also thank Emmanuel very sincerely for all the work done together and for all the discoveries done together. All the best to all of you. Please smile. Verna. Mr. Hamid, Monsieur Hamid. Bonjour, Monsieur Hamid, quel plaisir.
Merci pour vous, merci à toute l'équipe.
What a great pleasure.
Avec la Coupe du Monde.
Hi to you.
Oui.
With the World Cup, yeah.
Obrigada.
Presque.
You
Obrigada.
almost
Feliz Natal.
got it.
Merci à tout le monde.
Natal a todos. Emmanuel, if you are there and you to say your final just closure words, thank you in advance.
I don't see him connected, Eduardo.
Okay, yes, maybe, yes, because he's in a very unstable situation, he's traveling. In this case, then
Eduardo, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Gertrude. So we close then this final webinar, which is just a beginning, a new beginning for a new phase, and we meet again. Thank you so much, everybody. It's a real privilege. It was a real privilege.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Eduardo.
Thank you.
Bye.
Maria Gil, olá, Feliz Natal.
Bye all. Merry Christmas, Eduarda.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Andrea.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Whoever said Andrea, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci
beaucoup à tous
Merci.
pour
Merci à
l'apprentissage et
tous.
pour la participation.
Merci beaucoup à tous.
Buenos
On
días.
continue. Merci.
Bye bye.
Mon cher David.
Oui, Eduarda. Je suis ému.
Eduarda, boa festa. Boas festas.
Muito obrigada, minha cara.